Tonight on Reporting Scotland, the leader of the Scottish Lib Dems uses his conference speech to call for the Health Secretary to quit over her handling of the NHS. Claims that the lack of deployable fire engines in Aberdeen could be putting lives at risk. Up to 100 cars a day are still illegally using the Old Forth Road Bridge, even though it's only for buses and taxis now.
So this basically here, just be careful, is the entrance for the men. So the men come through here.
We meet the developer who's building the first mosque in the Outer Hebrides, just in time for Ramadan. And we're at Ayr Racecourse as the Scottish Grand National Festival gets underway. Good evening. The Scottish Liberal Democrat leader, Willie Rennie, has joined calls for the Health Secretary, Shona Robison, to quit. He told the party's conference in Aviemore that the minister had to take the blame for problems in the NHS, including on Tayside. Mr Rennie also launched a sharp personal attack on the Conservative leader, Ruth Davidson. From Aviemore, here's our political editor, Brian Taylor.
Aviemore, glorious sunshine. Time for the Liberal Democrats to clamber aboard an ancient, static vehicle. You may ask why. I certainly did.
We're going to steamroller the opposition into a pulp.
So that's the plan, starting with the Tories. The Liberal Democrats worry that centre-ground voters are attracted by the personal charisma of Ruth Davidson. Hence, the personal attack on her, arguing she's failed to thwart unpopular Tory policies.
Why haven't you put an end to the £4 billion benefits and disability cuts? Why haven't you stopped the rape clause? Ruth Davidson, you may bake a cake, tell a tale, stand on a tank, but when will you lift a finger to help people in need?
Still targeting the Tories, the Lib Dem leader said those who stood against Brexit should now demand a second referendum on the outcome of negotiations. But Mr Rennie also had another target in mind. He said the health service was in chaos. Long waiting times, poor mental health care, and now the cash problems in Tayside. And he blamed the Health Secretary.
Shona Robison must accept that she is responsible. Change will only come when there is change at the top. She must resign, and she must resign now.
Still on health, delegates agreed that abortion should be a medical, not a criminal issue, although they wouldn't change the current restrictions. One woman told her own story of a termination 10 years ago on medical grounds.
I can remember every minute of it, as clear as if it were yesterday. How I held him in my arms to say goodbye.
The conference also backed free abortion in Scotland for women from other countries, and they urged safe zones around abortion clinics.
I cannot begin to imagine how much worse my mental health would have been if I'd had to run the gauntlet of angry protesters shoving pictures of fetuses in my face and shouting at me.
Tomorrow, the conference will hear from the federal leader, Vince Cable.
And Brian Taylor joins me now from Aviemore. Going back to that criticism of the Health Secretary, Brian, Shona Robison enjoys strong support, doesn't she?
She enjoys very strong support from the First Minister, who has backed her approach, and indeed Shona Robison herself says that she's getting on with the task in hand. They talk about record expenditure on the NHS and say yes, there have been problems, but believe they are tackling them. The talk here in Aviemore tonight from the Liberal Democrats is that they might try and orchestrate some form of motion of no confidence in the Scottish Parliament. Now, already yesterday, the Labour leader Richard Leonard called for Shona Robison to go. The Tories are no fans of the Health Secretary either. They are the principal opposition after all. But I understand that the Tories would not support at this stage a motion of no confidence. They'll talk, they say, with Willie Rennie, but they are not convinced that that is the road to go down, perhaps feeling it might be a distraction from wider arguments over the future of the health service, which they say should be the focus.
Brian Taylor in Aviemore, thank you very much indeed. It's claimed that lives are being put at risk because of a shortage of fire engine cover in Aberdeen. Over the past 3 weeks, there have been a number of incidents where appliances were not available. The Fire Brigades Union claims this happens on a daily basis. The fire service says cover never drops below a safe level. Rebecca Curran joins us now from one of Aberdeen's 3 fire stations. Rebecca.
Yes, Sally. Aberdeen has 6 fire appliances, 2 based here, 2 over in Altons and 2 at the central station. And between them, they provide a service for around 250,000 people, not just here in the city, but in parts of Aberdeenshire as well. But it's emerged since the end of March that there have been 3 occasions that we know of where engines have been stood down. The most recent incident was for 14 hours over Monday night into Tuesday morning, where 2 appliances were unavailable. And just last Sunday, a crew had to be sent up to cover from Arbroath. Now, the Scottish Fire Brigades Union say that this situation is unacceptable, and they claim that it's happening more often than not.
It's daily. It's almost on a daily basis. It never used to happen, and now it's happening. It's happening more often than not. People's lives are being put at risk. Members of the public are being put at risk, and our members of the Fire Brigades Union, the firefighters, are also being put at risk.
Now, despite repeated requests for an interview today, the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service weren't able to provide us somebody to speak to. They did, however, send a statement. They say that the appliances were taken out of service due to a combination of circumstances, including specialist training for crews in water rescue, rope rescue and driver training. They say that cover in Aberdeen never drops below a safe level, and that around 100 new recruits will begin their training in the coming weeks. Some of them will be based in Portlethen, which is just to the south of Aberdeen. Well, the Fire Brigades Union say that this is all down to there being not enough staff, so they fully welcome those new recruits starting as soon as possible.
Rebecca Curran in Aberdeen, thank you very much. A 39-year-old man has been arrested and charged in connection with the death of a woman in Kirkintilloch. 33-year-old Jennifer Morgan was found in the back garden of her home in the town's waterside area on Wednesday afternoon. It's understood she'd been stabbed. A 32-year-old man who was also arrested was released without charge earlier this afternoon. Scottish Power is raising its gas and electricity prices by 5.5% for nearly 1 million of its customers. The move, which will come into effect on the 1st of June, will see typical standard dual fuel bills for those on direct debit deals rise by £63 a year. The company says the price change will apply to about a third of its customers. The full report from the Independent Review of Sexual Abuse in Scottish Football is to be delayed. The chair of the group, Martin Henry, says they want to avoid prejudicing criminal proceedings. An interim report will be provided to the Scottish FA in the meantime. Publication of the full report will follow the conclusion of any criminal proceedings. The Scottish Government has now backed away from adopting the current Department of Work and Pension rules on which terminally ill patients are fast-tracked through the benefits system. At Holyrood this week, the Scottish Government was accused of reneging on their pledge to end the system, which sees some people with terminal illness waiting months for benefits. This afternoon, the Scottish Government changed its proposals, removing the stipulation that a person has to be assessed as within 6 months of death to have their benefits fast-tracked. Well, Aileen Clark is here with me now. And Aileen, it's a complicated issue, but this is all tied up with new social security benefits coming to Scotland.
That's right, and that's why these discussions, if you like, are happening now about what might be done differently in Scotland. Now, the current system is that, as you've outlined there, Sally, the Department of Work and Pensions will only fast-track your benefits and put you on straight onto that higher level of benefits that you're due if your doctor ticks a box on a form and says this patient is going to die within the next 6 months. So that's what triggers that fast-tracking process. Now, there was a proposal that in Scotland that should be elongated to 2 years. So if it was likely you were going to die sometime in the next 2 years, you should be fast-tracked. The Scottish Government weren't so keen on that. They were more keen on the status quo, that 6-month limit, if you like, but with a bit more leeway for doctors, and there was a big row about it. Now, they have now backed away from that. They've turned tail on that, and what they've done is they've taken that 6-month provision completely off the table now. And what they're saying is this will be a decision for doctors, clinicians. They will not be tied into this kind of very strict kind of timetable with that. So really, it looks like they're moving more towards a system of doctors assessing need rather than any kind of timetable issue. I asked the Social Security Minister, Jean Freeman, why they had changed their mind. She said that they've listened to the arguments.
I took the view that we should remove any figure, any arbitrary number, because at the end of the day it is arbitrary and some people will lose out on that, and go back to where I think we should be, which is to focus on the clinical experience and the expertise of those doctors and specialist nurses who every day are dealing with that patient, know them well, know the condition well, and are best placed to make that judgment.
And what's been the reaction to this shift?
Well, as I say, big row about this at Holyrood earlier in the week. Opposition parties very pleased, seeing this, as a victory, as forcing the government into this position. But also the change of heart has been very much welcomed by those who work most closely with terminally ill patients. Now, there was more than 50 medics signed an open letter this week saying how concerned they were that it looked like this 6-month window was back on the table. That was not to their liking. And they are really very, very relieved that the government has had a change of heart. Dr. Graham White works at the Marie Curie Hospice, and he summed up those feelings.
We're delighted, certainly, with the news today. I mean, Marie Curie has always campaigned that there shouldn't be a timescale put to this, and it should always be based on clinical judgment. So we're delighted that the Minister has listened to ours and others' concerns and has agreed to this definition. And I think this presents a real opportunity now to have a fair and system for the terminally ill people in Scotland.
And all this will be up for debate in Holyrood on Wednesday.
Aileen, thank you very much for explaining that. There you are, hello. Some car drivers are using the Forth Road Bridge illegally to travel between Fife and Edinburgh. Since the opening of the new Queensferry crossing, the old bridge is only supposed to be used by pedestrians, bicycles, taxis, buses. But Transport Scotland says it believes as many as 100 vehicles a day could be taking the route. Stephen Godden reports.
Buses, fine. Taxis, no problem. But this morning saw a welcoming committee for those crossing the Forth Road Bridge when they shouldn't. A short pursuit to be followed by a stern reminder that private cars should be using the Queensferry crossing.
Shortly after the new rules kicked in, transport officials spent 5 days monitoring the traffic that crossed the bridge. What they found was that roughly 1 in 7 vehicles was using it illegally, an average figure of more than 100 cars, vans and lorries every day.
Some, including a local MSP, believe that merits tougher action.
The police and Transport Scotland are very good at finding motorists for things like speeding. We just need to make sure that people know there are cameras potentially or police patrols on the Forth Road Bridge to catch motorists who are in violation of the new rules.
The count that measured daily offending in 3 figures hasn't been repeated, but 2 months on, those monitoring the bridge believe drivers are getting the message.
People have been using the Forth Road Bridge for over 50 years, and it takes time for people to learn that they're not allowed to use it. We genuinely feel that people are actually making mistakes. And if we actually see, or the police, with stopping people are seeing repeat offenders, then they have the ability to charge people for that and enforce it.
Those on 2 wheels are also keeping a close eye on the situation.
It's vital that the active travel corridor is respected so that people feel confident when they're cycling across the bridge now. It's a much more pleasant environment, and it means that people with children or perhaps older people feel that they're happier cycling across it now. There's no vibrations, there's very little noise.
They are, Transport Scotland say, relatively small in number, and for now, education rather than enforcement is the approach to dealing with drivers who break this law. Stephen Godden, Reporting Scotland, at the Forth Road Bridge.
You're watching BBC Reporting Scotland. It's 17 minutes to 7. A reminder of tonight's top story. The Scottish Liberal Democrat leader, Willie Rennie, has joined calls for the Health Secretary, Shona Robertson, to quit at the party's conference in Aviemore. And still to come, the Chief Medical Officer wants us to get more involved in our own health care. A court has heard that a woman accused of murdering her mother at their Ayrshire home read what were described as weird books about child killers. Youth worker Marie Doran also said that Shayla Greenop told her she used her phone to search for information about the smell of a decomposing body. Sheila Greenup, who's 20, and her 40-year-old aunt, Lynette Greenup, deny assaulting and murdering Sharon Greenup in 2016. Andrew Black reports.
The trials heard that this is the house in Troon where Sharon Greenup's decomposing body was found in November 2016. The 46-year-old spent most of her time at home after an earlier accident left her almost unable to walk. Today the court heard from Marie Doran, a youth worker who knew Sheila Greenup from her involvement in a local group for young carers. Miss Doran said Sheila would read weird books. Asked to give an example, she said Sheila had an interest in reading about child killers. The youth worker also said that Sheila told her she had searched "What does a decomposing body smell like?" on her phone. The court also heard that 20-year-old Sheila was inquisitive, read a lot and was considered to be an emo, someone who took an interest in what went on in the fringes of society. The trial also heard from police officer Lindsay Booth, who went to Sharon Greenup's home at the time her badly decomposed body was found. The sergeant said Sharon's sister Lynette Greenup was at the house at the time and told her that Sharon had been dead for 3 or 4 days. The officers said she then put it to Lynette that the level of decomposition indicated that Sharon could have been dead for longer than 3 or 4 days. She told the court that Lynette responded by becoming agitated. Lynette Greenup, who's 40, and Sheila Greenup are accused of assaulting and murdering Sharon Greenup between September and November 2016 and claiming her state benefits after her death. They deny all the charges against them. The trial continues. Andrew Black, reporting Scotland at the High Court in Glasgow.
Ofcom has provisionally approved the launch of a new BBC Scotland TV channel. The broadcasting regulator says it's carefully reviewed the BBC's plans and research with viewers in Scotland. Over the next 4 weeks, it will seek the views of interested or affected organisations and individuals on its provisional decision. Ofcom will publish its final decision on the channel launch this coming July. The new channel is due to air in the autumn. Patients should be more involved in their own treatment. That's according to Scotland's most senior doctor. In her annual report, the Chief Medical Officer, Dr Catherine Calderwood, says everyone should feel able to question their GP about their suggested treatment. Her approach is called realistic medicine, as our social affairs correspondent Rival Alderson reports.
This is the report from today.
Catherine Calderwood has been championing realistic medicine for 3 years and at the Airdrie Health Centre today launched her annual report telling patients what it means for them.
Scottish doctors and Scottish people are the right people to talk about this sort of thing.
Right. The report argues there should be greater confidence among patients to question what the doctor's telling them and for doctors to address those concerns. It goes against what she says is a fix-it culture.
People do want something that is handed to them very often, and sometimes there's a lack of time or a pressure of time when there's a limited appointment time and a waiting room full of people. What I'm really promoting is that we take time to discuss and that people feel that they can ask their doctor what are the benefits of this treatment.
Patients are urged to ask their doctor key questions. They include, is the treatment being proposed really needed? What are its benefits and risks? And are there alternatives, including what happens if I do nothing? Health centre patients have reservations.
I would say the doctor has got to have, the last word of what's going to happen.
They're the professionals, you're not, and I think that's most important.
You're the one that knows what's wrong with you, but the doctor is the professional, and I trust the doctor.
GPs at this health centre say there are benefits from realistic medicine by treating the patient in a way which suits them, even if that's not the easiest fix.
The health benefits are the main one, that people get the sort of treatment that they want, and that might not be the most interventionist treatment, but it's one which suits their lifestyle and their family the best. There may well be cost benefits from this in the background, but they're not the primary thing that we're looking at here.
Realistic medicine has attracted international interest, with 13 million people worldwide reading the reports. It follows a UK Supreme Court ruling that patients were in the driving seat when it came to discussing their treatment. Rival Alderson reporting Scotland, Airdrie.
Muslims in the Western Isles are welcoming the prospect of the first mosque in the Hebrides. The developer has attracted crowdfunding from all over the world, but he's in a race against time after pledging to have the mosque open for the month of Ramadan. From Lewis, Jackie O'Brien reports.
After years of praying in private, the long-established Muslim community in the Western Isles is to finally have a place of worship.
So as you come through here, so this basically here, just be careful, is the entrance for the...
It's all thanks to the self-styled mosque builder who's swapped Leeds for the Isle of Lewis to raise funds and speed up the redevelopment of a property in Stornoway.
The Imam will pray towards Mecca, which will be in this corner. Inshallah, God willing, once we get this done, the community will have somewhere to pray, to have a funeral, children to come and, just relax. The men and all the women can pray 5 times a day here. And it's like a little centre as well for them, because currently there's nothing in the whole of the island.
Without a mosque, local Muslims are forced to worship in each other's homes, where festivals and even funerals are often held.
Well, not much of a day, is it? It's still windy, though.
The small but well-integrated Muslim community has reduced in size over the decades, but the resettlement of Syrian refugees to Stornoway has boosted the population and hopes of the Hebrides' first mosque.
That has more than doubled the number of Muslims. And they're young children as well, who will actually welcome the mosque, simply, as I said earlier, for education purposes. So it definitely is a need for a centre. And it's a really long time coming. It's not too soon.
There has been some dissent on the staunchly Presbyterian island, but most churchgoers support the opening of the new spiritual centre.
I do agree with liberty of religion and liberty of conscience, which is where I come from, in regard to my views on the building of the mosque. So on that level, I wouldn't object to it, and most of the Christians I know here are of the same mind.
Back on site, the fastest mosque builder in the West believes the island's spirit will help him finish the job before the Islamic holy month of Ramadan in just a few weeks' time.
That boost. So it's like having iron brew. You get excited, you take the iron brew, you feel that's it, you could do anything. At the moment, they're lucky I'm not building pyramids. I'll probably get them done in about 3 weeks.
Jackie O'Brien reporting Scotland on the island of Lewis.
Celtic's major shareholder, Dermot Desmond, says he wouldn't stand in Brendan Rodgers' way if he wanted to speak to Arsenal about their soon-to-be vacant manager's position. Rodgers is already among the bookmakers' favourites to take over from Arsene Wenger, but Desmond says he hopes his manager will stay on. Horse racing's Scottish Grand National Festival's underway in Ayr. It's worth millions of pounds to the local economy and attracts thousands of spectators. It's also attracted our sports reporter, David Curry. He's there now. David.
Yes, Alice, spring has sprung and today's races have been run, but the big one, the Scottish Grand National itself, is tomorrow. And this year's event is perhaps more important to the racecourse and the local area than before. It's not all about the horses, and although today is Ladies' Day, it's not just for ladies. Turning on the style is for anyone.
Oh, this is what I wear every day, but the ladies deserve to see me like this.
The fine spring weather helping the racing public to blossom, in contrast to the washout here in September, which caused Scottish racing's other big event, the Ayr Gold Cup, to be cancelled.
All the restaurants are full, bars, yeah, it is great.
Beauty salons.
Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah,
shops that sell hats.
Shops that sell hats.
Yeah, and we were actually supposed to be here in September, and obviously that was cancelled. So, and it is, you do hear about the knock-on effect of all the people that are affected. So I think the fact that this today and tomorrow is to be fantastic weather is just great news.
After the disappointment in September of losing the Gold Cup Festival, for the town as well as the racetrack, it's a huge thing to get back on track, attract the crowds in, economy-wise, it's a huge boost.
Yes, it's very important, especially after missing the September meeting. So this is a big one for us.
That one was rained off.
It was rained off. The ground was in.
What kind of financial hit did you take personally from that? Can you quantify it?
Quite a big one.
The racing is over for the day, but the big one is tomorrow.
And it's Value at Risk who'll win the feature race.
Perhaps the biggest winner, though, is the local economy.
Behind those in
That's David Curry there. Fantastic weather, said the lady in these very fine hats. Is that what we're going to have, Judith?
Yes, we are. We've got high pressure just hanging on for tomorrow. Not a bad weekend, actually, Sally, all in all. A very good evening to you. Well, we did see some beautiful sunshine. In equal measure, we saw some showers across northern Scotland. They will continue to ease. This picture sent in of the capital of the Highlands, Inverness, there behind me. And Shetland saw some great sunshine as well. I think this dog here, this little Westie, is going to become famous one of these days. He's always on the screen. Now, as far as tonight's concerned, any showers across the north easing and some evening sunshine for many of us. That transfers into dry, clear conditions for the overnight period, although we will see some mist and low cloud just lapping onto the shores of the Solway by the end of the night. Quite chilly considering the temperatures that we've seen. We're looking at lows of around about 3 or 4 Celsius, but down to close to freezing in parts of rural Aberdeenshire, so we may well see a wee touch of frost possible. Maybe some mist or fog patches, particularly across western Scotland, but it will start off dry tomorrow. Just that lingering sea fog down towards the southwest. Elsewhere, some fine sunshine and offer, airy mist very quickly dispersing as we head through the morning, so a fine day to come. We will start to see a wee bit of cloud building up across the Northern Isles come the afternoon, but still some good brightness. The stays dry as well. Temperatures here are around about the 11-12 Celsius mark with mainly light winds. Good sunny spells for the Grampian area towards Inverness, highs of 16, maybe 17 Celsius here. 17 for the capital tomorrow, so good sunny spells across eastern Scotland, and we'll start to lose that sea fog from the Solway and from the Inner Hebrides as well. So again, we're looking at dry conditions up the west coast. The first signs of a weather front pushing into the Western Isles come the end of the afternoon with some cloud building here. So if you're thinking of heading to the hills tomorrow, fantastic conditions actually. Any early mist or fog quickly clearing. It will be very mild at the tops. Look at that, into double figures for many places. It stays dry too. And visibility will be excellent in the sunshine, particularly across eastern ranges. So as far as tomorrow afternoon and into the evening is concerned, it stays dry, some evening sunshine. It's just that slow build of cloud across the Western Isles. Now there is a potential for 1 or 2 sharp showers. You can just see them south of the border coming into the southeast tomorrow night, but they'll probably just graze the Berwickshire coast and maybe the Aberdeenshire coast. This all lies out to the Atlantic because we have this low pressure and this weather front coming our way, and that's kind of our weather menu for the beginning of next week too. So it starts off with some cloud and rain across Scotland on Sunday, but that front does move through fairly quickly, and we go into a westerly direction with the wind. So that means some showers for western Scotland, sunshine over the south and the east, and with that wind, it will feel that wee bit fresher. That's your forecast, Sally.
Thanks very much, Judith. Now, a reminder of tonight's main news. After 22 years in charge, Arsene Wenger is to leave Arsenal at the end of the season. Under his leadership, the club won numerous trophies, including the League and FA Cup double, twice in 1998 and 2002. And the Scottish Liberal Democrat leader, Willie Rennie, has joined calls for the Health Secretary, Shona Robson, to quit at the party's conference in Aviemore. And that is Reporting Scotland. I'll be back with the headlines at 8 and the late bulletin just after at the 10 o'clock news. Join me then if you can. Bye-bye.